Okay, so after a week taking off, we are back. It is now time for week 10. It's November season, which means that this is the toughest road ahead for a lot of teams. They really have to make up for a lot of losses. They just have to pull everything out of their hat. Other thing I have to say is that trade deadline is Saturday. So if you guys are trying to make a trade, make sure you do that right away. Try to work it out as soon as possible. And in this week's segment, there are two teams I believe are in must-win situations, and I don't think they can afford this loss this week. There are two of them. I will break it down. So all of that and more is coming up. All right, welcome back. So without further ado, our first matchup of the week is going to consist of two different teams. One coming off of a very big divisional victory. The other one lost a divisional victory in last week's rivalry week. We're going to break it down. Now in first place in his best division, David Sutton at 6-3, taking on Lewis at 4-5. Now, this is a tale of two different teams. David's team seems to be, fighting for a division title. I think after what he did last week, trying to make all these trades and getting that win, he is actually 3-0 in his division, which give the guy props. That's a really hard division to go 3-0 in. He's fighting for a division title. I don't think he's looking at wild card at this point. Obviously, he'll take wild card, but division title I think is what is on his mind. And the same could be said for Lewis, who is not out of it in his division by any means. So basically, the theme for David's team is there are a lot of people on bye, a ton of people on bye for this team. And as you look out over to Lewis's team, they have to figure out a solid, startable lineup if it's possible. There's just a whole bunch of mix and matching going on. So without further ado, when we look at the two quarterbacks in these situations, Carson Wentz is a streaming option for this week, taking on Aaron Rodgers. Now, we'll start with the man Aaron Rodgers himself. He's been actually pretty good. Last week, I don't know what went wrong. A lot of people are saying that they're blaming the wide receivers for not getting open. That could probably be the case. But Indianapolis really played a solid game against them. I don't think anybody could have called Indy winning that game. But Green Bay looks to bounce back. I think going to the road at Tennessee, I think that's a big bounce back game for him. The 21 projected for him right now I think is kind of low. I think he can hit 26. Wentz against the Atlanta Falcons. The good news is that Carson Wentz is at home. Atlanta's defense doesn't present that many issues, I would think. But when we talk about Carson Wentz for a minute here, I don't think he's a quarterback that's going to have big games. He's another guy who can kind of just manage. And in a solid matchup type of situation, who is Trufant going to be on? I think that's the interesting thing because the Eagles don't have a number one wide receiver. However, Desmond Trufant has been known to follow around in the slot. So by that logic, I think Jordan Matthews is the one to have a dud type of game here. But with the way their offense has been moving, it's not that spectacular. But there's going to be a lot of short passes. I believe that there's going to be a lot of dump-offs to Sproles in this one. As well as I think this is a solid matchup for Zach Ertz. So I think with those two being the key factors, he's projected at 19. I think his potential in this game is somewhere around the line of 17 to 20. So I think that's pretty accurate. Oh, and without further ado, we go to the wide receiver matchups. Jordan Matthews, DeAndre Hopkins, Jordy Nelson, Des Bryant. So I'm probably making an assumption that Trufant would be on Jordan Matthews. That to me does not, that 12 points won't happen. If Trufant's locking down Jordan Matthews has issues catching the ball. Now that second issue is trying to get open against Trufant. The only guy Trufant has struggled with this season has been Mike Evans. He shut down. I know he's played some good wide receivers that he shut down. I know Baldwin comes to mind when he followed him in the slot. Regardless, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but he's done a solid job. DeAndre Hopkins, well, I think you're banking on that the bye week might have fixed Brock Osweiler a little bit. But I would also be kind of nervous with DeAndre Hopkins this week. And the reason being is because of Jalen Ramsey. Now, Ramsey has been very, very solid on covering number ones when he's had the duty to follow them. He's even followed them sometimes in the slot. So that is something definitely to keep an eye on that one. When we look at the other end of the ball, Dez Bryant against Pittsburgh should be a good matchup. But as we saw last week, Dez Bryant, to me, at this point, with Dak Prescott at quarterback, not with Romo, believe it or not, guys, I think Dez Bryant is becoming the new Jeremy Maclin. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm going to tell you exactly why. My issue with drafting Jeremy Maclin was, if you look at the team that they play on, they're a run-first, West Coast dump-off type of team. And when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and they go against a matchup and you look at the matchup that's beatable, you ask a question, do they need Jeremy Maclin to win that game? The answer is no. And the same can be applied for Dez Bryant in this situation. Dak, but a little bit different. Dak doesn't need him to win a game. Dak kind of can just run the ball all game, dump it off to Witten and Cole Beasley. They're going to take 3 yards every play. It's a boring offense unless Dallas was to get super behind in this game. That's the only way I think Dez Bryant. But I actually do think that Pittsburgh actually has a chance to win this game. And so it would be interesting. But at this point, J.J. Nelson looks like he's going to have a bigger role going forward. But out of a bye, you know, you have a Michael Floyd that's healthy, a John Brown that's healthy, and a Larry Fitzgerald that's healthy. I don't know if it's official that he's elevated into that number 3 role. But regardless, this matchup looks very juicy. So I think there's more uncertainty with David's wide receivers than I think that there are with Lewis's due to matchup. So I'll give the advantage to Lewis so far in the quarterback and the wide receiver department. Now this is a little strange. Ty Montgomery, and if Doug Martin plays, taking on Carlos Hyde and Jerick McKinnon. Now Yahoo waited enough, and the fact that Montgomery's getting a lot more carries and is kind of featured as their featured running back, he's a secret weapon with wide receiver and running back. That is big, especially if he kind of keeps like a pass catching role and he goes into the wide receiver slot. This could be big going forward. It will really make your life a lot easier if you can put him at the running back spot. My only issue with Montgomery is Starks is coming back. Randall Cobb is getting healthy. Devontae Adams has actually looked very good. So if he's kind of being pushed back into a temporary running back with Starks as the featured back, I think he doesn't have that much upside for obvious reasons. I mean, the carries will go down. I actually think he might be featured as like a third down back, personally. So, but a matchup against Tennessee, I expect the whole Green Bay offense to kind of go off. So he looks like he's solid. Doug Martin, if he plays against Chicago, that is also another solid matchup. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs have been pretty solid when given the volume. And the fact that Rodgers is also questionable, Antoine Smith is out, Peyton Barber I think is just a backup. So if Martin does play, that's not a bad matchup there. Looking at Lewis, Carlos Hyde has to be cleared to play first and foremost. And then there's also Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon was not 100% healthy. You saw that last week, and Carlos Hyde isn't 100% healthy. So this is a big toss-up. And even in a bad matchup, Hyde did very well. But I'm not putting much faith in Jerick McKinnon. If Doug Martin is to suit up in this game, I give the running back edge to David. All right. Tight ends. Lance Kendrickson, Travis Kelce. Okay, so big surprise. Lance Kendrick's been very consistent. I don't know how. They might have just said, you know what, we have to incorporate you into the game plan. Surprisingly, the Jets have not been terrible against tight ends. I thought they were going to be a lot worse. But, you know, this is it's not a scary matchup, so roll him. Travis Kelce's just a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know what else to say. This guy has every opportunity to be like an elite tight end, and he just acts like an asshole on the field, and that's going to cost him. Like, Andy Reid flat out doesn't like him already, even though the organization offered him a big contract. This guy just ruins every opportunity that he could have. So I'm not buying Travis Kelce. So I give a slight edge to Lance Kendricks. Oh wow, there's a lot of Rams stock in this game. Tavon Austin and Brian Quick against Crowell and Patterson. Crowell plays tonight. This is going to be a boring game probably to watch. Crowell has not gotten a lot of carries, and I'm not big on him. Patterson, I almost decided to use a claim on. I almost did. He's a very, very sneaky play going forward with return yards. And with Pat Shurmur under the helm, there's going to be a lot more quick passes and a lot of trick plays. I actually think Patterson is a sneaky pickup. And you know my issue with Tavon Austin. It's a toss-up. Brian Quick. Snap count has risen, but why banking on the Rams is very hard to trust. And then we'll go down a little bit. Baltimore is a great defensive play. They looked good last week. San Diego, I think, is my streaming defense of the week, though. However, I think when they're at home, they tend to get up on a lead. And I actually think that this is the one game where Miami's going to lose this game. That's my call. I don't think they're going to let Ajayi beat them. So when I go down the list, and I have to call it, there's a lot of factors that come into play here. I think the quarterback, I think Rodgers explodes way more than Wentz, so that's a big one. Matthews and Hopkins have an issue of getting shut down. Dez Bryant, game flow is his issue. J.J. Nelson, we don't know if he's officially going to be elevated. And then when we look at Hyde, there's so many question marks. So this is actually kind of hard to choose. But when I look at just quote-unquote upside alone, that's how I have to kind of call it. And because there's a bigger upside factor with Lewis's team, because David's guys are on a bye, I think I'll just have to play it safe and call it there. Okay, so I had mentioned in the intro that there are two teams that I believe are in must-win situations. Here is one team that is in a big must-win situation. Quick recap. We have one team who's lost, I believe it's 3 straight. I could be wrong, but the stock is not trending up. And the other team lost a big divisional victory, and I think is 0-3 in his division, which is the best division. And the must-win situation this week has to come for Brian's team. This is like the last. What's the word I want? I don't want to say winnable game because anything could kind of happen, but this is bottom line in the quote unquote best fucking division. This is the last game before he has to get 3 wins that he's 0-3, and I think to keep pace in a wild card race even, because there are, in my estimation, I think there's 2, you could even argue 3 teams that can fight for a wild card spot. He needs this win more than anything, and he really needs this win. So it's Brian against Harsh. Bortles and Matt Ryan. Well, I think the one thing that Brian is extremely pissed off about is Blake Bortles, and he takes on Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's gonna torch Philly. I can say that. Bortles, you're relying on garbage time, which sucks. And I actually kind of can agree with Yahoo on the 16.18 projection and why Bortles wouldn't be 20. And it's funny, I'm not going to use the argument that Houston has a good pass defense. My argument is that there's not going to be garbage time in this game. So why? Brock Osweiler is the quarterback of the other team. Even if Houston have a great time of possession, it's going to be all field goals. Like, I think Osweiler is a lock for maybe 1 touchdown, but I can't even say 2, to be quite honest with you. And this game could be close. This could be like a 17-20 game. So I don't think there's going to be any garbage time for Bortles to have success. However, you can't bench Blake Bortles because at this point, everybody has quarterbacks and they're cock blocking people, and it's just at this point it sucks that you can't find anything else, so you kind of have to roll with Blake Bortles. Sanders and Robinson against Devontae Adams and Demaryius Thomas. Wow, I think this is the biggest difference maker in this one because it's what Broncos receiver is going to go off, if that's even possible anymore. Let me take on Brian's take first. I do not like Allen Robinson this week at all. Not that anybody's big on him. My issue with Allen Robinson is that we tried to figure out why Houston's defense was so good because they didn't play anybody. But after shutting down T.Y. Hilton, and I still firmly believe that Marvin Jones is the more explosive play on Detroit. A.J. Bouye has been a top 5 cornerback. That is the reason why. And with Allen Hurns in concussion protocol, I think it's pretty obvious who's going to get shut down. It's going to be Robinson. Now, Robinson obviously is a different type of receiver than Marvin Jones and T.Y. Hilton, but I got to tell you, even in a home matchup where the Jags do good, I am not feeling confident in Allen Robinson. Emmanuel Sanders, the matchup looks like it should be good. Denver should be behind in this game because they're on the road. But I don't know, man. Ever since I hyped up Emmanuel Sanders, man, he's kind of crashed back down to earth. The only reason I think why the 13-point projection is still there is because Demaryius Thomas has also not stepped up that much. So that's my take there. I think these two of these guys, they might combine for just 20. When I look at Harsh's team, Demaryius Thomas is a toss-up just like Sanders, so I really can't call anything there. Davante Adams has been really, really solid. Believe it or not. This was one guy I kind of liked targeting in the late rounds just because I think with Jordy Nelson back, he's going to see soft coverage. And that's why I liked him. However, the projections go way down with a healthy Randall Cobb coming back and now Ty Montgomery probably going back into a receiver situation. Davante Adams does not look to be explosive. But regardless, I think Aaron Rodgers is starting to gain a lot more trust in Davante Adams. So, boy, this is a tough up. But I think based on matchup alone, I'd still go harsh. Slight. West and Asiata taking on David Johnson and Duke Johnson. Well, both running backs will play tonight. The volume is still surprisingly there for Terrence West. I'm not big on Terrence West. You know my take on Terrence West. However, this is like the easiest matchup. I have to like his chances a little bit. I think he hits 15, I think, in this game. Asiata's matchup is actually not that bad. But the fact of the matter is now, rather than being a 2-headed monster, it's now a 3-headed stupid monster with Ronnie Hillman starting to get into the mix. So the only thing you have going with Asiata is a touchdown. For now, he's the only back that knows the playbook and is fully healthy. So you kind of like that matchup chance there too. I'd say he might score a touchdown, but the point total might be like 11 or something like that. Duke Johnson is game flow dependent. In a matchup against Baltimore, you would expect him to have a lot, but David Johnson is just this matchup alone. The 23 projected points. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I think David Johnson's explosion alone can save Harsh's ass. So again, I like Harsh. Fedorowicz, then a very, very underrated tight end. Brock Osweiler is regressing. Not that he was any good. So now he's involving dump offs to the tight end. Jordan Reed is an elite talent. He is healthy. He gets more healthy off the bye. I know Minnesota does not look like the most tempting matchup, but I'd still go with the elite talent over Jordan Reed. Now, this right here, guys, is a difference maker. We got Delaney Walker and Jamison Crowder taking on Jarvis Landry and Kendall Wright. Okay, well, Tennessee, I think, has a lot of potential to put up fantasy numbers in this game because it's the Green Bay Packers, and logic would tell you that they're going to be behind. Crowder has been so consistent, though. Even in a matchup against Minnesota, he's the one guy that I think you can't put coverage on him because you have to worry about Reed and Jackson over the top. I actually think, believe it or not, even though I have Minnesota's defense, I actually think the Washington offense kind of matches up very well with Minnesota because it's true that Rhodes is a shutdown corner. He's phenomenal. I think he has top 5 talent. But you have to say to yourself, if you're a defensive coordinator, do you want to get beat by 7 yards or do you want to get beat by 50? And that's the logic there. I think they're going to take out Jackson, which would leave Crowder a lot. I think he's the one to get the most points in the Washington passing game this week. And then Delaney Walker's got a solid matchup. I know he's hurt, but this is a solid matchup. Now, Jarvis Landry, I think, is the difference maker for a harsh victory right here. I don't know what's going on. I knew he was going to regress. I didn't think this much. And number one, it's a run-first mentality with Jay Ajayi because Adam Gase is smart. He's like, look, I cannot develop Ryan Tannehill in my system. Let me run Ajayi. Run-first mentality. You got Jarvis Landry now. This is a solid matchup. I'll give him that, but I think San Diego is going to win, which means game flow would go in Landry's way. And Kendall Wright, you just can't trust Kendall Wright at all. So, I think I feel a little bit more confident with Brian's flexes. Ooh, this is a little... I actually don't like both defenses in this matchup. I know Denver's a great defense, but Breeze has just been so good, and I think it's also because of the emergence of Michael Thomas. So, man, it's really hard to call on that one. I think that's a draw there. So now it comes time for me to pick a victory. So when I look at the overall summary, I don't see Bortles having a big game. I don't see Robinson having a big game. I think West and Asiata do enough to manage the game. I think Reed and Crowder, I'd say Reed hits about 9 points. Crowder hits about probably, like, in my opinion, 14 to 15. Walker's a toss-up, but I think the combination of Matt Ryan and David Johnson, I think you're going to be looking at a lot of points being scored on Harsh's side of the ball. So the difference maker here would be which Bronco receiver is the one to dominate. Is it going to be Emmanuel Sanders or is it going to be Demaryius Thomas? I think this is something that we have to look into. I think also the Green Bay and Tennessee game, there's a lot of stock in this one. I know Rashard Matthews is also on the bench. I don't know if he'll be elevated into Brian's starting lineup. I don't know, but he already has Walker in, so I don't know if you want too much Tennessee stock. Dang, these are getting really tough to call. The fact of the matter is this, though. I'm gonna call it like this because this is the easiest way to call it. It comes down to the Broncos receivers because I think that Matt Ryan and David Johnson are locks to go off. I don't see any way how they bust in this game. I don't think there's any lock here for Brian's team, so that's tough. However, if Brian's team does enough to manage and say Sanders goes off or gets a lot more points than Demaryius Thomas, that's Brian's key to victory. I think Harsh's key to victory is if Demaryius Thomas goes off, I think it's a clear wrap because I don't think there's enough more. There's a lot more firepower that Brian can put up with if he has to deal with 3 people going off. So bottom line, it's the battle of the Denver wideouts. If Sanders comes through, I think Brian's team has enough to manage a victory. But if Thomas comes through, knowing that Ryan and Johnson will go off, I think that's what it comes down to. So that's how I would call that game. Welcome back. We are now going to get into the next matchup of the week. Believe it or not, these two teams right now have playoff teams. And you might think to yourself, you've got to be joking. One team is on a 3-game winning streak. And believe it or not, that division is not wrapped up by any means. This other team seems to be mathematically eliminated from playoffs. I think we have 4 more games. It's not set in stone yet because there's the wild card has not been officially decided. But I think we're playing spoiler, and I know damn well if there's one thing he wants to end, it's this team. This is a rivalry that's been going on for a while now. It's a former Super Bowl matchup. Yes, Allen taking on Bull. So Paul's riding a 3-game hot streak. I think that's the hottest streak going right now. Oh, no, wait. No, Max has won a lot of games. I'm sorry, Paul. Second hottest streak. And then we look to Allen, who has a lot of guys I would love to trade for, but obviously cannot get. Let's get into it. Okay, Eli and Mariota. Now, I don't know with Eli Manning anymore. This guy was supposed to break out. I think it's more McAdoo than it is Eli. Disregard the phone ringing in the background, by the way, if you can hear it. Mariota against Green Bay. I love that, though. I like Marcus Mariota slightly. Diggs and Jeffrey against Michael Thomas and Tyrell Williams. Wow. This is a really great matchup. I love both Michael Thomas and Tyrell Williams. These guys have that next step championship potential. I really do. For the playoffs that are coming up, these guys might be able to be a factor into a winning team. The only thing is that Allen has already established that he is not trading at all. Michael Thomas and Tyrell Williams, they're the real deal. Thomas against Denver, we don't know who Chris Harris is going to be on. And without Talib, I don't think you can match him up on one guy the whole time. Thomas has been so good, but I think recently, if you look at the recent success, it would show you that Harris would be on Thomas. Tyrell Williams, I love this week, though. Love him a lot. But I love these two guys as well. Diggs this week, reports are coming out that Josh Norman's not going to be on Diggs because he's going to move around in the slot. Paul, you might catch a break there. Alshon Jeffrey against Tampa. Alshon Jeffrey might have a big second half. Logic would show you that it will because Jay Cutler's back. He's healthy out of a bye. This is a guy who you can buy for if you want, but I don't know about that. Now, running backs, Forte and Sproles, Booker and Hill. All right, so Forte against the Rams. I don't know how I feel about that. The Rams' run D is pretty solid. Jets are at home, though, so it should say that they would be holding a lead, I would think. So I do think game script helps Forte and not Powell in this one. Sproles against Atlanta is a very sneaky matchup as well. He's now, quote-unquote, the lead back, and he's got a nice floor. Well, the only bad thing about Devontae Booker now is now there's some Capri Bibbs hype. This could force him into a split. Jeremy Hill, you're relying on that touchdown. They're at the New York Giants. Both Hill and Bernard have looked really nice. With that being said, I think the running back situation kind of comes to a draw. Witten against Graham. This, to be quite honest with you guys, obviously I'm not buying the Jason Witten whatever ridiculous game that was last week. And then we look at Jimmy Graham. The one thing that could go wrong with Jimmy Graham, New England's got to take away who they don't want them to beat. It's either going to be Baldwin or Jimmy Graham. My worry with Jimmy Graham is that he went off last week, and if they're looking at recent film, there's a slight possibility that Jimmy Graham could be the guy getting taken out. However, New England might play it the safe way and say, you know what? We might let him in their own territory. I would say Jimmy Graham might get a lot of catches. But when they're in the red zone, Russell Wilson is going to have to look somewhere else. That might be Baldwin. So I think Graham, because I don't think you can game plan around taking out Baldwin because then Jimmy Graham's going to torch you, or vice versa. So yeah, I think that's something to be worrisome. I don't know if I would have a Jimmy Graham touchdown in this one, and I don't have a Jason Witten touchdown, but I would say that's a close draw. I don't know what to say about that. Okay. Flex spots, Bell's amazing. We know that. Jonathan Stewart, you've got to rely on that touchdown. However, Kansas City's been so bad against the run. I actually like Stewart a lot. Willie Snead's a sneaky play as well. He is in the slot, and if Chris Harris is not lined up against him, I would kind of predict Snead to be the Saints wideout to do good in this one. I know you're a big Redskins fan, but I'm sorry. Why is Matt Jones in your flex spot? He's not starting. It's Rob Kelly for now, and I think for the rest of the season. They don't trust him. That could cost you. Jets and Giants defense. Giants defense is looking pretty solid. Jets, Time to pick a winner. Here are the factors, the keys to victory for Allen. Michael Thomas cannot get shut out in this game. That's number one. Number two, Devontae Booker has to keep Capri Bibbs off. If Booker really wants to make a name for himself in the for the Denver Broncos and moving ahead to next season, he's really got to bust his ass, or else this guy is going to be in a split the rest of his career, excuse me. You need a Jeremy Hill touchdown too to keep pace, and Bell's got to be Bell. When I look at Paul, Eli can't be shit. Diggs has to continue success. I don't know. Something would tell me that the Redskins might not be dumb and put Norman on Diggs, but the logic says that it's not going to happen. Jeffrey's got to be back to Alshon Jeffrey. And your other key here would be, in my opinion, a Jonathan Stewart touchdown just to keep pace with Le'Veon Bell's explosion. Let me call a winner here because I think the quarterback matchup goes to Allen. I do love Tyrell Williams. I love Mariota. I love Williams. I love Bell. Those are the only three guys I really love. But there's a lot of question marks with Graham, Booker, and Thomas. They're solid plays, don't get me wrong, but there's a possibility that they can bust due to matchups. When I go to Paul's side of the ball, I love Jeffrey. I like Sproles just because of his floor. This is a tough toss-up. The projection has Paul winning right now. If Mariota goes off, I think that's a really big difference for Allen's key to victory. But there could be a lot of scoring potential for Paul's team in this one. Because there isn't a scary matchup for Paul, I got to go with him. So this is the number 2 team that I talked about. We're now heading into the next matchup of the week. I said there were 2 teams in the beginning that need must-wins. This is the second one that needs a must-win now. We're talking about my team taking on Rob Coffey's team. Again, we have another a Super Bowl matchup that has happened in the past. This is going to be a big must-win for Coffey, taking on my team. Now, if we want to pull the history card out for a second, I think the last time I managed a victory against Rob Coffey, it was a while ago. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been... The year he had Andre Johnson on the Texans and he got shut out by Cromartie against the Jets. I think that's what it was. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but I think recently I have not won. The year he won, I lost to him twice. One in week 2, one in the Super Bowl. And last year I fell short by like 8 or something like that. So this is definitely a nice little matchup here going. Oh wait, let me say some shit. I gotta buzz in. Let me just say one thing. This is clearly a Rob Coffey victory because I fucking love Rob Coffey and I fucking hate Nicky. So by that logic, there you have it. Bye bye, bitch. Okay, we're back. Here we go. We're gonna go into it right now. Quarterback matchups. Brady and Ben. Both of them are at home. Both, I think, have explosive games, actually, this week. Brady's on prime time. Ben plays at the 4:25 slate. I actually think Pittsburgh wins this game. I know Coffey probably is like, fuck no. But at the same time, I like Pitt at home a lot. I know Ben's a little rusty, but I do like Ben. But I also like Brady. Edelman and Beasley taking on Brown and Baldwin. Now, Brown is Brown. We'll go to Julian Edelman for a second. Seattle's defenses looked kind of shaky. Edelman has not exploded at all this season by any means, but maybe the bye helps. I don't know. Cole Beasley. You know how I feel about Cole Beasley, but I mean with Dak Prescott, his floor is safe. His floor might be safe enough that if Doug Baldwin doesn't do much, I think they cancel each other out. I All right, we have Melvin Gordon and Rob Kelly taking on Devonta Freeman and Spencer Ware. Now, Ware passes concussion protocol. That is great news. They now head on to the road in Carolina, so that should be a big one. As long as Coleman's out, looks like Freeman's going to be the workhorse. Philly's got a good run defense, though, but I do think that Freeman will do his damage in the passing game. Melvin Gordon, for some reason, is amazing. I don't know if Rob Kelly's going to be my starter. I don't like the matchup. I just like the opportunity. But there could be a possibility where he might just get 6. So I don't know. Gronk, it doesn't matter what defense he's against. It's Gronk. We'll play that card. Ertz is, logic would say he's a sneaky option against the Atlanta Falcons. But other than last week, he has been kind of MIA. I'm taking a chance right here because I don't know with Hunter Henry's health. So Zach Ertz right now will be starting for me for this week. Coffee has officially benched his all-time favorite man-crushing Kristen Michael. He now has Kenny Britt and Antonio Gates in the lineup. The matchup dictates really well for Britt. I'm not gonna lie. The only thing I would worry about with Kenny Britt, call me crazy, but if they decide to put, and I don't know why, but I actually don't think he's a good matchup against Revis because Revis is physical. I think Revis gets burnt by those quick, fast guys. Not saying that Britt can't burn him. He probably can. But that's just my logic in calling that. Gates is questionable now, but with Hunter Henry back, I think the yardage total that happened last week is going to go way down, but there's always a threat for him to score. Steve Smith is playing in a good matchup, so we don't know with that quite yet. I would think that he has a solid game maybe because it's against the Cleveland Browns, so that could be a factor. Jordan Howard looks to be the workhorse. I think they've already conceded that, like, look, man, this is our future. Maybe we got to run him against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Minnesota's defense I thought was a lock every week. Looks like I'm wrong these last 3 weeks, and I don't see any reason why they won't be shitty again. And I'm not to knock the defense. I just think that their offense is putting them in bad spots, and the defense is on the field a lot more. And Dallas, Coffee lives freaking Dallas. All right, let's get into it, bitch. Here are my keys to victory for my side of the ball, and then I'll go to the keys to victory from Coffee side of the barrel. I do think the projections are a little bit low for Coffee for some people, and I'll get into that in a minute. All right, so my team. The Ben and AB combo at home would dictate a lot of success. It would. I think that Pitt, gets back on track. They're clearly the best team in their division, and the fact that Baltimore, I think, is in the lead now is just mind-boggling. Baltimore is not a good team. This looks like it's the game they get back on track. The other key to victory, New England's game plan cannot revolve around Doug Baldwin 110% of the time. Because, one, that would dictate that Baldwin might get maybe 4 points. Number two, if they decide to do that, that means Jimmy Graham's probably going to have a field day because I don't think they have anybody that can match up with Jimmy Graham. And now, let's rewind for a second. Last time Graham played against New England, he was with New Orleans, and they matched up Aqib Talib on Jimmy Graham, and Talib shut him down. I remember that vividly. So it's just something to talk about. I think Graham is easier to take out of the game than Baldwin. That's just my philosophy. Other key to victory, Gordon's projected a lot of points. A lot of points. I don't know why. No, just kidding. But at the same time, he has to continue his success, and with the volume, I think it'll be there. And I think Jordan Howard has to have a solid matchup. The number one key to success is the New England stack. If they go off, that's a big key to success for Reb Coffee. Rushing totals, I don't see a lot of rushing yards for Devonta Freeman. I do see a lot of catches, though. The fact that he's going to be on the road, I think that defense might get up. They've lost 3 straight, though. They can't be feeling that good right now. Where's keys to success? He's got to be 100% healthy and continue to be the workhorse, because I think if Charkandrick West, I would assume that West is going to have a third down role. You just better hope it's not like a split role. And the flexes, I think for Coffee, have to hit as well. We know when it's my team, I don't curl the fucking games. So those are my quick keys to success right there. And that's what it is. Okay. It's now time for the next matchup. A tale of two really different teams, and the storyline, one's going really bad, one's going absolutely amazing. We're gonna talk about this shit. One team we're gonna talk about. A lot of people are buying into, believe it or not, championship material success. The team looks to be hitting its stride after successful trades and a lot of successful pieces coming into place. The Fresh takes on a team that's lost now five straight. Not good. We're talking about Matt taking on the Fresh. So two of these teams were in the best fucking division last season, and one of them is still in the best fucking division. So we're gonna talk about that. Alright. Kansas City's defense, I think, isn't as great as people think it is, and I think that has to do with injuries. Cam Newton's got to hit his stride, man. He hasn't been that great in a while. And then there's Dalton. I actually like Newton better than Dalton. Marshall and Green, this is your number one key to success. I'm sorry, Matt. These two really need to have, like, career days. Marshall is against the Rams. I actually don't like that matchup. Tremaine Johnson, I think, is back, or he's coming back. So that's not a good matchup for Marshall. AJ Green. AJ Green against the New York Giants, I think, will be fine, though. This is where you're going to be pissed. Fucking Mike Evans, best wide receiver, bitch. He'll be fine. Kelvin Benjamin, he's been quiet because he hasn't found the end zone. So it comes down to, in this matchup, it comes down to who's going to be better, Brandon Marshall or Kelvin Benjamin. And honestly, I don't even know who to call for this one. But I'll say slight Benjamin, just because Marshall hasn't been the same. Capri Bibbs and Peyton Barber taking on Ezekiel Elliott and Lamar Miller. I don't think I really need to go that much into depth with this one. I'll talk about Capri Bibbs because I think the other guys alone will hit their floor. Bibbs, a lot of speculation is now saying that he might be the lead back. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think it'll be a split. It's a decent matchup. Peyton Barber, if Rodgers and Martin are out, then hey man, you have a workhorse back. Congratulations, for a week at least. Rudolph against Eifert. Give me Eifert. If Tevin Coleman plays, this is not a good matchup by any means. However, if he does play, if I had to say which running back will have better success, it'll be Coleman, just because he can run inside and outside, and I think Devonta Freeman is too dependent to run to the outside against a stout Philly rush defense. Corey Coleman plays tonight. I don't like his value with Cody Kessler. I think if Josh McCown was still the quarterback, I think he has big play potential. Now we're looking at Randall fucking Kern on the curb, taking on Mike Wallace. Okay, bold prediction right here. If Joe Hayden gets matched up against Mike Wallace, I know Joe Hayden sucks, but I think he could take Mike Wallace. But needless to say, it's the Cleveland Browns. I think Wallace and Smith have serviceable days. Cobb played in limited action, so there's no reason to me believe that he'd be marked out unless he has a sec back. So again, I think this is almost a clean slate here, other than the quarterback position, because Seattle's not going to do great against New England, and Arizona against San Fran. It's unfortunate that this team has lost 5 straight already. The reason why I put this matchup here late, Johnny's hitting his strides right now in the best fucking division. And a lot of people I know in the for the future, I like this team a lot. So I think that success continues. If there is some optimism here for Matt, if Barber gets a workhorse type of role, he might do better. If not, cancel out Lamar Miller. That's a possibility. And say Booker wasn't the featured back against New Orleans and they benched him, Bibbs. So if those two things do happen, there is some glimmer of hope. So I don't want to say that this is going to be like an instant blowout. I think there's some hope here. I'm not going to give totally up on that. But I mean, there's a lot of firepower. Evans, Elliott, Miller's an okay floor. Eifert. Am I missing somebody? I think those five. Oh, and the Arizona defense, I think, will be the MVPs for Johnny's victory this week. Time for the matchup of the week. Let me get into it. We have a team who's won, if I'm doing the math correctly, I believe it's 5 wins in a row. Oh, who did you? No, it's not. Who did you lose? Wow, I'm way off topic here. Hold on. You lost to me. Who else did you lose to, Max? I don't remember who you lost to. I thought you were 7-1 for a second. Sorry, my bad. All right, let's slowly get into this shit. So Max is at top of his division. He is first place, and a lot of teams seem to like his team as the number 1 power ranked team. And Andre, the first power rankings, Dre's team looked like it was cruising. They traded for C.J. Anderson, which we thought was a really great trade, myself included. Anderson gets hurt. Crabtree gets dealt because he wants to have security going into the playoffs. I completely understand that. But a lot of explosion that happened before has slowly cooled down. But needless to say, there is still a lot of explosive pieces on this team. Let me get into it. Breeze and Palmer. I'm going to say this right now. Even though Palmer gets the San Francisco 49ers and Breeze gets the Denver Broncos, I love Breeze. I love the Breeze. I actually think he outperforms Palmer. Julio at Philly is money. Brandon Cooks could be money if Michael Thomas gets taken out of the game. Jordy Nelson against Tennessee. I think Nelson catches 6 passes, give me 80 yards and a touchdown. Odell Beckham now gets the ball every time, so hooray for Odell. DeMarco Murray against Jerry. Murray is not in a good matchup, but I think the workload will always be there for him. Jerry. Officially now an RB1. Against the San Diego Chargers, this is not a matchup that's going to scare anybody by any means. So I actually think that both of them cancel each other out. Chris Ivory, the thing you have to hope for with Chris Ivory, it's kind of like the situation with Forte and Powell. If the Jacksonville Jaguars are tied or up, Ivory's going to get the workload. The minute they fall behind, it's going to be all Yeldon, so it's game flow dependent. And the fact that he plays for the Jaguars would tell you that it could be a TJ Yeldon game, but I'll never bank on that. Gio against the Giants could give the Giants fits. I actually think that might happen. Greg Olsen. I like Olsen. Even though I like Zach Miller, I like Olsen better than Miller. But I think this is where the matchup is won. I think it's the flex. Adam Humphries and Jeremy Maclin taking on Terrell Pryor and Larry Fitzgerald. Now, I'm not a big Adam Humphries guy because I don't think he's consistent enough to be that guy for Tampa Bay. I don't. Macklin's just been so bad this year. I can't believe how inconsistent he's been. And it's more bust than boom. Like last year, he had a lot of decent games, and I knew he was boom or bust. But Pryor plays tonight. He's a safe floor now, and Fitzgerald's still got it. There's no reason to believe that he doesn't still have it. Oh, wow. I didn't even know Andre had Houston's defense. Against Bortles, why not? Washington was a sneaky pickup, though. I kind of like that a lot. My thing is this, though. The keys to victory for Andre, the Saints, when they come marching in at home, the Breeze Cooks stack Cooks has been really good at home, by the way. That stack alone could go off, and Julio Jones could go off. That's the big three. No, he has the big four, but I think this week is going to be the big three, not the big four. I do think Murray will be all right, but I don't think it's going to be anything explosive against the Green Bay Packers. But needless to say, Tennessee's got a better offensive line. They got a good running game, so maybe Murray actually does find maybe 18 points. Chris Ivory's too game flow dependent, and I don't really have that much confidence in the flex matchups. But Humphreys could have a solid PPR day. You never know. When I go to Max's side of the ball, I think Palmer should be fine. Jordy will score. Beckham should score, but we've seen some weird things happen with Odell Beckham this year. Jerry. That's the guy who I think is the difference maker in this one. If he can keep pace with DeMarco Murray's workload, and considering that, say Breeze has like a 30-point game and Palmer was to get like 25, it's close. Julio could go off. You need both Jordy and Odell, though, to kind of nick at that a little bit. And then it comes down to Jay Ajayi, and then I think that Max has to really win in the flex matchups to win, because I think the big four for Andre, I think, will get their points. I don't see any way that they don't. The fact is, you need Bernard to go above Chris Ivory. You need Zach Miller to keep pace with Greg Olsen, and then your flexes really have to deliver. Because I think when the Saints are at home, Andre's team is a very formidable team because of the four explosive pieces that he still has. But I think despite Andre's guys going off, I'd say that now I've picked against Max, I think, almost every week. I'm pretty sure that I've done that. But if we look at it, we got Adam Humphries and Jeremy Maclin. I don't know if they'll outperform Pryor and Fitzgerald. So by that logic, I think it's going to be a close one. But for the first time in a while, pick Max.